So I have made us fuck, marry, kill, but Frankenstein edition. So this is like, fuck, marry, or, kill them, and we'll use the parts to reanimate our next cadaver, okay?
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Welcome, friends, to episode 371 of the Ink to Film podcast, where we read the book and then see the movie. I'm filmmaker James Bailey.
And I'm writer Luke Elliott.
And this week we discuss Guillermo Del Toro's 2025 film, Frankenstein.
And joining us once again to be children of the charnel house together, Rachael K. Jones. Rachael is the finalist for the Hugo, Nebula, Stoker, Locus, World Fantasy, and Yugi Foster Award winner, who joined us previously for Frankenstein in the past. She has just dozens of short stories out there in all the major markets that you can basically name, and she's amazing. So welcome back to the show, Rachael.
Yay, I'm thrilled to be back. And obviously a credit Ink to Film with my rise to glory.
You were already
we don't deserve
already glorious before you came on.
Yeah,
but we appreciate
Thanks again. We're excited that you're back on. We had you back when we covered Frankenstein, the James Whale 1931 film.
Yeah, and the novel, of course.
Boris Karloff, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, yeah. Double feature that you joined us for.
Yeah.
And now this Del Toro adaptation is out.
We like to do that, sometimes once we have guests on, especially it's like we associate you with this project, so we're like, want to come back and talk to us about this new adaptation? We think that maybe gives a little consistency for the listeners too. So hopefully you're okay just coming back and talking to us about Frankenstein once again.
Oh, I'm totally ready. Yeah, and I'll be here for the next one 10 years from now too.
Okay, yeah. I actually do think there's another one. Isn't Maggie?
We have The Bride right now.
The Bride, yeah. I mean, that looks very loose, but it is another kind of.
I didn't know.
Frankenstein adaptation.
If you sign up for all the Frankenstein adaptations, you'll be here all the time.
Yeah,
so
be careful what you wish for. There's a lot of them.
You can't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah, so since last we talked, you've been nominated for more awards. I think you won that one I said, the Yugi Foster. I cannot say that name.
It's UG.
UG. Okay, sorry.
Yes.
UG Foster Award. I've only ever seen it written out. I've never heard it said, And that was for your Sound of Children Screaming short story?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's the one.
So that one I know got a lot of buzz, and I think that came out 2023.
Yes.
Which would have been after our show. So, yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing as a writer, and what has your writing led you to, I guess, over the last few years?
All kinds of places. So yeah, in the short story side of things, focusing a lot on horror more recently. So The Sound of Children Screaming is a story about a school shooting. And its premise is sort of like, what if during a school shooting, when the teacher's hiding the kids inside the classroom closet, that's when you find your portal to your Narnia realm. And then what if when you get there, you kind of find out that shit is so fucked up that you're like, where do you put the children? Do you keep them in this kind of fantasy world danger, or do you bring them right back into the shooting where, you left off? And so it's a story about gun culture in the United States and how gun culture is school shooting culture. Not a very happy read. So if you check it out, I always kind of to warn people that if you've got small children, it is a tough read. And I wrote it because I work at a school, and we had a really, really scary lockdown a couple of years ago when I was at a school where I remember I was hiding under my desk and having this thought of listing off all the different workplaces I could be in right now where you don't have protocols for what if a shooter comes in your building to kill you at work. And I was like, this is kind of really, really weird and surreal that we just kind of accept this as part of life. And then from there, I kind of wrote the story to process those feelings. So it's very angry and slightly lighter fare. So the year after that, I guess this last year, I was nominated again for a bunch of short story awards for a short story called 5 Views of the Planet Tartarus, which is a very short horror story. It's less than 600 words long, so it's even to summarize it would be to give away the ending. Yeah, very different. I mean, it's funny because I remember I wrote that story as a light little bit of fun compared to the other one. It actually kind of took me by surprise that it caught fire the way it did. But I've always been very proud of that one. It's kind of
Where was that one published?
Five Views of the Planet Tartarus was published in Lightspeed, I believe.
Okay,
and
Lightspeed.
then
Okay.
Sound of Children's Scream was published in Nightmare. They're both sister magazines, so
I'll try and put some links to those in the show notes for people
Yeah.
if you want to check them out. I saw somewhere and I assume this is accurate. I think it was on Wikipedia, and it was about your Sound of Children Screaming that the title is borrowed from you saw a news report where it said something like the sounds of children screaming removed in the caption.
yes.
And
yeah.
I think I saw that.
Mhm.
When I read that, that was the inspiration. I was like, I don't know when that was, but around when that shooting happened, I remember seeing that too. So I love the idea of taking that and using it as inspiration for a story, especially one that, has done so well and I think people are connecting with.
It's kind of unfortunate. Like, I remember another science fiction writer writing at one point in time that there are some kinds of stories you write that you hope someday they're obsolete and people read them and they're like, wow, this is kind of a weird, curious little story that I don't really understand anymore. And like,
Yeah.
part of me hopes that maybe like 100 years from now, people can read that and be kind of like, wow, shit was
Yeah.
really fucked
Look
up
what they
back
had
then.
to worry about
Like,
back then.
Isn't
Yeah.
that crazy? Anyway, the other thing I've been up to is I've been working on a TV show. So I've been working for the folks at Blur Studio. They're most famous for their Netflix series Love, Death, and Robots, but they now also have an Amazon Prime series called Secret Level, which is an anthology animated series about video games. And so each episode's like set in the world of a video game. And so I wrote an episode in season 1 of that. We're currently working on season 2. I can say that because it's already been announced that it's been renewed.
Nice.
So that's happening
Very
as we speak. It's super great. So I can't say a lot about that, but it's going to be great.
Yeah, we talked
Yeah.
about this a little bit at WorldCon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we got the kind of the story behind that. Are you able to reveal what episode or what project you're working on, or is that hush hush?
Not on the current season, no. Yeah.
Not yet. Okay. All right.
No.
We'll just have to
I
have to
know.
follow your newsletter
Yeah.
and stay tuned because I'm sure as soon as you are able to announce it, you will. I assume.
Oh yeah. It's going to be super great. Like we just wrapped up my portion and contributing to actually like the episode that I've been working on. It's just going to be so great. It's just going to be
Cool.
I wish I could talk about it.
That's so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Video game adaptations are like a whole element of adaptation that we've touched on a few times. I've been on some panels about it, but it's not like a primary focus of ours. But it's something that, we both love video games. So
I was gonna say we consume a lot of them. And speaking of Worldcon, it was so cool to see you in person at Worldcon, and you were nominated for a Hugo, which was so exciting. We caught you. If listeners have seen our catching up with former guests,
it's a video on YouTube.
we caught you just as you were on your way into the Hugo. So we appreciate your time there, and that was so cool.
It made my night, honestly. It's like it was a fun night in general, and I mean, getting to see you guys at the start of it was just a total blast. I had a great time.
I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so we got a Frankenstein to discuss, though. We got Del
Yes.
Toro. I know James Del Toro is one of your favorites. He's someone you talk a lot about on this podcast. He's someone I like quite a bit too. Pan's Labyrinth to me is pinnacle, although I will admit I haven't seen every single one of his films. Yeah, we got this Del Toro adaptation of Frankenstein. It was a big deal. Like a lot of people kind of hyped it up coming out. I remember it being a big release. I went and saw it in the theaters, 35 millimeter at the Hollywood Theater when it released. And I hadn't watched it since. And then I watched it again yesterday on Netflix, streaming it. I'm curious for both of you. Did you see it when it came out originally, or did you just see it for the first time for this podcast?
I saw it as soon as it came to Netflix, which would have been, a couple months
Like
ago.
a couple months ago? Yeah.
November-ish.
And then I watched it again just this weekend for this podcast
Oh, nice.
to refresh my memory. And yeah.
As Luke alluded to, I'm a massive Guillermo Del Toro fan, just in terms of a filmmaker, a person, his work, like the way that he represents like horror and animation and all these different like elements of film that I'm so in love with. And it's been so wild to see his like he's just started being nominated for Oscars. Everything that comes out is just like Oscar. And I think that's great to see, but he always felt like sort of home to me as a filmmaker. With like Kronos, Devil's Backbone, Pan's Labyrinth, Luke, you mentioned, like he's just a filmmaker, and even into things like Hellboy and Pacific Rim. Like I love the way that he just embraces genre. So I was so excited for this film coming out, and Luke was like, maybe you wait till we're going to do we're definitely going to do an episode on it. Maybe you wait. And I was like, all right, I'll wait. I won't go see it in theaters. I didn't, I saw it every day. If I got on, I don't go on Netflix every day, but if I got on Netflix, I saw the banner and I was like, oh my God, I gotta
Calling
wait.
to you.
So I waited until this week to watch the film. And so there was a lot of hype going into it. Obviously I knew that it had been nominated for a lot of different awards. And I'd seen, photos here and there and heard whispers of how it was performing just in terms of like audience reaction. And yeah, I can't wait to talk about this movie. That was my experience. I watched it on Netflix like this week. It was incredible. I love the detail and the meticulous effort that someone like Del Toro puts into his filmmaking, especially on this scale, and for a project that is so well trodden, and for us to get his version of it. It's so cool. And just to jump ahead a little bit, this is kind of his dream project. Almost every project that he's created up to this point is in some way reflected Frankenstein, the story, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, in some way, because it so affected him. So this was his dream project. He'd been really pushing to create this film for decades, like 20 plus years. Wow. And so then we finally get this Netflix adaptation.
So it sounds like we have a pretty good array of experiences here. It's funny, you kind of take the role I normally have, because I feel like often I reach out to you and I'm like, hey, there's this adaptation that just came out. Maybe we should wait to watch it. And you're like, I already seen it. Like, like almost always, like you watch it immediately and then I'm like, well, I guess I'll wait. So I'm usually the one who hasn't seen it yet, so a little bit of a reverse here. And it sounds like you're very positive on it. I know we haven't really gotten into general thoughts yet, so we'll granted. I feel like I'm a little more mixed on this movie. I have some criticism. I have some love. I'm a little bit divided. And I think the reactions from what I've been seeing is also like that. And in fact, I think I had a tweet about this because this is something that I've known about for a while, where I was seeing the immediate sort of takes on it. They are so hot and cold on this movie. People with really intense feelings, pro and con. And there's a lot of valid points being raised out there, I think. And because I had seen it already and I knew I wasn't the one who had just seen it, I was able to wade into a little bit of that to try and kind of, it'd been impossible to capture everything, but to try and kind of understand what people are saying and how it kind of lined up with some stuff I was feeling as well. So we'll get to that as we move into our thoughts. But Rachel, I want to open the floor for you. What did you think of this movie generally? When you saw it?
Okay, yeah. I had two different reactions to it each time I saw it. Last year I saw the new Nosferatu, which was so dark and atmospheric and just strangely hot and really disturbing. And
that was our first project last year.
It was, but I remember it, to me, it was like the kind of horror movie I've, always wanted to see. It was like just so me. And then when I heard that Del Toro was doing a Frankenstein, I was like, maybe this will be like a double header. We could watch these two movies together. And I think I went in expecting it to be a lot darker than it ended up being. And the first half of the movie was very dark. So I actually liked the first half of the movie a lot. I thought this is perfect. This is great. And then I was really disappointed in just like the tone that it ended on because I wasn't expecting it. The second time I watched it, I got a lot more out of it because I think I started appreciating the structure of the story and like why things were changed the way they were, and how like the start and the ending parallel each other, and just the sheer beauty of the movie. It's your eyeballs just bleed with how gorgeous every single shot is. So like I've risen in my estimate of like how good it is. But it's taken. I think I'm glad I rewatched it because I think I wouldn't have gotten that from like just the gap in expectations I had the first time. Yeah,
I'm curious, Luke, going into your general thoughts too. The ways that I framed this film in my mind as I was watching it was something akin to Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula, like a gothic romantic version. Of course, like Dracula has that pretty inherently, but I felt like so much of that was seeping into this film for me, where I was like, this isn't like you said, Rachel. I could see a version of this that was going to be so like almost like overbearing and just like so tense. And this film has like a lot like kind of lightness and like a lighter touch and innocence to it in a sense. But Luke, sorry, I jumped ahead. What are your general thoughts?
You bring up a good one because like I'm so glad we covered that Coppola film, because while I'm not the biggest fan of it, I do really like it, and I see so much of that in other movies now that are trying to adapt like Gothic era fiction or Gothic feeling movies. Like there's so much of the visual sort of language that he kind of established in that movie with his like almost high fashion, bright colors, but like extreme gore. Things are a little hyper, not like, almost surreal, not real in the way that like Eggers does. So Eggers, like you were talking about in the Nosferatu, is much more grounded. This hyper attention to historical accuracy. Things are very dark, and he doesn't go for that same kind of Coppola feel. And that's why this movie reminded me a lot. And I'm curious if you've seen this one, Rachel. There was the 90s adaptation that Kenneth Branagh did starring Robert De Niro as the monster. Have you seen this?
No.
Okay,
no.
so that is the version that this movie actually reminded me the most of, and I love that one. For the record, I know I kind of raved about. Well, I love. It's not great, but like I kind of love it. It's like it's interesting. Like
it's a complicated film.
It's a complicated feeling. But there are
it's fun.
Parts of it I like. It's fun, but like you were talking about how this movie's kind of fun, kind of over the top.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the visuals are not going for that grounded realism of an Eggers film. This is like we have giant glowing green vats and like. Everything's just kind of over the top. Like the tower looks crazy. Like, it kind of goes for surrealism in a sense, or like larger than life storytelling. Which I think you could argue in the mind of a lot of people, that's kind of where Frankenstein as a novel sits. At least it seems to in Del Toro's mind. So in that way, like I agree. I think this movie's beautiful. When I walked out of it, because I'm going to couch a little bit about like how I feel about it now versus how I felt about it when I originally saw it. If anything, I was a little more. I don't know. This happens a lot with me. Like I was mixed on it coming out. I remember talking with some friends afterwards, and like we had some similar criticisms, some similar things we liked. But in this most recent time I saw it, because I knew what it was going in, I was able to like kind of meet it on its level and appreciate what he did more as like this is what his version of this story is. This is what he was trying to do, and like I could appreciate it for that reason. But I still do see a lot of the criticisms that people have and that I even had when I originally saw it. There was a sort of bulldozing of nuance in this movie that I found a bit frustrating. There is a lot of complexity in Mary Shelley's characters. There is a lot of conflicted emotions that I think the reader feels about the monster, about Victor, about a lot of these different characters and how they behave, how they react to the monster. And it felt like in this movie, a lot of things were sort of simplified. Characters were reduced to being either villainous or heroic, abused and sort of sympathetic or completely unsympathetic, in order to tell the story that Del Toro wanted to tell. And if you like that story and you're like down for that ride, I think this isn't an issue for you. But if you miss that complexity and you miss that nuance, it does feel like it's lacking for me. I'm seeing a lot of nodding from Rachel, so I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Totally. I mean, I don't want to jump too far into spoilers of all that, but I totally agree. I think that the biggest shift I noticed was that a lot of like culpability was removed from the character. So if you're supposed to be a good character in the story, then like they kind of get less. They're more passive in this version of the story. And that if you're supposed to be an evil character in the story, then it's like your action, you get all the activity in the story. And I think that there, like, once again, I noticed some parallelism going on, and I think that's why it was done. But it was just kind of weird because I agree that it made the characters feel less complicated, and it shifted what the theme of the story was from it being about like, because Mary Shelley's novel is all about like science and creation and like what creates a person's character, and is it done from your environment or like is it based on like what you see, and like there's a lot of fun things with the creature in terms of how he learns how to make decisions by what people model from around him, and I didn't see quite as much of that in this movie.
Well, and how like trauma and misunderstanding can perpetuate more trauma and misunderstanding and create like every character in my memory of Shelley's novel, which I think I've read twice now, is that every character is a bit monstrous in and of themselves, right? Like they're all like we can understand why they do the things they do, but also there is a monster in there, and the monster is included in that. There are things the monster does that are unforgivable.
And it's because he's like the people around him, and they're even like. Maybe I should once again, I don't know how much to say before we get into spoilers, but like I wrote down my phrase for the creature was "What, this corpse?" That like there's all these situations where he just ends up somehow around a corpse that he didn't actually kill, and that's what causes the chaos. And I'm kind of like, well, yeah, but in the book, like there's often it's because of people's bigotry that like he gets persecuted, or it's because of his own actions, or like people make decisions. It's not just you walk in a situation and people misread the room.
Yeah, and it drives him to do some genuinely despicable things in response to that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And once again, that's the horror version of the story, and so I think that with what I noticed in general was that the Del Toro version of the story tones down some of the horror, and it makes it more of a personal story. So I think it's a little bit more about parent-child conflict and what does it mean to be a parent, and especially a father, I think. And and I think that in order to focus the themes of the movie in that way, I think that's why they made the decisions they made. But it it's hard when you had the book version in your head too.
Very early on, I realized like, oh, this isn't going to be like a straight one-to-one adaptation from Guillermo Del Toro, which was surprising to me because he so loves the source and he so actively talks about it. But I think that he feels that like as a filmmaker, he has told the story so many times that maybe he needed to adjust it in some ways, which, you know, I think is going to be to differing levels of success for each audience member. But I found that readjusting to be, while you have the Victor story and you have the creature story, and like the way that that's framed, like Rachel said, is sort of like a parent perspective and like a child perspective, and like how I heard Del Toro talk about this too, about how like he's like, if I made the film when I was younger, I don't think I would have been making it from the perspective of a parent, right? So now he's like gone it's kind of evolved in his mind as time has gone on, and his version, it was he's very opinionated on the work, and like I don't know how much you guys know about Del Toro in general, but like he has a home for oddities and monsters. It's called the Bleak House, and it's like a museum that he has where he has like life-size versions of like Boris Karloff's Frankenstein, and like as you walk in there's these so he's like he loves these creatures and he so identifies with the creatures. But then I found it interesting that this film like kind of strays away and at least in the biblical ties, the Catholicism that he brings into a story like this, where like early on it seems like Victor's like a messianic figure, like he's somebody who's like, he has some grasp on the world that other people don't, and he seems like he has like a light in his eyes, and then that gets darker and darker and darker. I found it to be like interesting, a bit jarring, but then as it went, I felt that like I got swept up in the way that he was able to tell the story as the creature, the monster, kind of brings it all full circle to like the parent looking at the son, and then the son being a child, then an adolescent into adulthood, and then the son kind of coming to say, these are all the things that you did wrong along the way. And I feel like that's fairly different from the source material. And yet like I got caught up in it, and I like, you know, it's maybe I haven't sat with it for long enough, but I found there to be enough nuance to where I enjoyed performances. I enjoyed the world, the way that the story plays out, knowing that it's like Del Toro's version of it. I would say this isn't even a horror film, right? At this level, it seems to me like a gothic romance mixed with some kind of dramatic emotional journey for father and son. And in those ways I can understand, like, especially missing like the creature, the monster doing things that make it truly a monster, because as far as we see in this film, it's like it is literally just people freak out at the sight of him, and then everything else, like, he hasn't really done much that you would say is terrible or irredeemable.
All right, so let's put a pin in that. I have a lot of spoiler thoughts, but we'll save it. Let's move to the look of the movie, because that's not spoilers, so we can talk about how we thought it looked. So I had the interesting experience of seeing it in 35 millimeter and then seeing it again on streaming. And I remember when I walked out of the theater going like, it was interesting seeing it on 35 millimeter. So I thought, I'm giving it the best avenue for it to look good because I'm seeing it on a big screen projected, rather than streaming. But an interesting thing occurred, and I'd be curious to get your thoughts on this, James, and whether, like, what you think is happening. But I thought a lot of the effects looked worse on the projection than they did when I streamed it. Now, I'm streaming it on my TV that has, like, it's capable of doing HDR, it's really good blacks, all this stuff. And so
OLED,
yeah, OLED. And so I thought maybe some of the effects benefited from that. But other than that, I can't really put my finger on it. But, like, the moments of CGI where, like, the body, there's a moment where a body is animated early on that looked way better when I streamed it on Netflix than it did when I saw it originally. Same with, like, the wolves later on. I mean, they still are not the best, but, like, they looked better, I thought, on the stream version. Yeah. And I'm just curious, like, is there something about the look? Because, like, in some ways, this movie has that very polished, very saturated colors, like, I don't know, there's certain parts of it. I mean, maybe that's a bit unfair because it does look really beautiful as well. Like, I don't want to lead people astray in that sense. But yeah, I was very surprised to watch it again on streaming and think that it actually looked better.
I mean, that's pretty bizarre because typically, like, if you're watching something on film, you're introducing a level of imperfection that's going to create texture that would help hide maybe some of those imperfections. So it's interesting to hear that you say that. My only, like, thought would be, because it seems really abnormal, because however nice your TV is, even if you spend $10,000 $1,000 on the nicest possible TV. When you're streaming, it's compressed. Unless you're watching a physical media of some kind, you are dealing with levels of compression, which will affect your blacks. It'll affect a lot of different things within the like presentation of the film. Yeah, the only thing I can think is that there was some reason, because I know it was a limited engagement for it to be in theaters. The only thing I can think is that they had to cut a print before maybe they were finalized on effects.
That was my thought. It's like maybe there was more work or remastering or something that was done, because it came out on Netflix a little later.
Yeah.
So they definitely had a little more time, and like maybe there was something additional done. I don't know.
Especially for film, like they have to go get that film processed and then distribute it to theaters and then have it, you know what I mean? So their timetable to be done is a lot sooner than, oh, you can upload it and you know, start streaming it on Netflix.
Maybe this isn't super interesting for people, but I'd just be curious. Let us know in the comments if anybody else saw it in the theater and then saw it again streaming, if you happen to notice any difference. Or I don't know, maybe I'm crazy.
All right, so let's get into some of this production here. I want to talk about Del Toro. This is his passion project. So in 2007, Guillermo Del Toro said that a project he would kill to make would be a faithful Miltonian tragedy version of Mary Shelley's 1818 novel Frankenstein.
Miltonian tragedy version.
Yep.
And yet faithful is an interesting combination of words there.
Yeah.
Because I guess it gives him the wiggle room, because one of the things that I think people are reacting to was that this movie had been sort of billed as being so faithful. And so I think
was that him?
Introduces
was that marketing?
some of the frustration. Yes, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you could make an argument for like the structure of it being more faithful than a lot of previous versions we've seen, like certainly more than the like James Whale film. Like it feels a lot more faithful in that sense.
We've got at least the framing device of Victor like telling the story on either end of it. And
right.
So there's that. Maybe that is like, you know, I think a lot of other Frankenstein adaptations just aren't showing the, you know, the far north.
Yeah. No, yeah, that often gets omitted. Yeah.
Citing Frank Darabont's pretty much perfect script for Kenneth Branagh's 1994 film Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So remember we talked about that. There was this script that everybody said was absolutely perfect in every way, and it was the best script ever. And then even Frank Darabont was pissed that supposedly Kenneth Branagh just kind of butchered it.
Yeah, or so he says, yeah.
So that was way back in 2007. Okay, this is Del Toro getting involved. In 2008, he revealed that he was in the process of crafting drawings that he hoped to use as a basis for the world of the film, and that additionally, he had begun taking script notes, but stopped once the WGA strike occurred. So he's a filmmaker who he, you know, came up in independent cinema in Mexico, and he was heavily involved in effects work, in like scripting, in all processes of the filmmaking process. And so he's like, if you ever see like him on set, he's like often sketching, or he creates his own storyboards and like that, and they're honestly incredible. Like his artistic style is very cool, and that's like something interesting about him as we go forward.
Certainly like a hallmark of his movies is just the visual language he establishes that are, I think you could tell like this is like consistent throughout all of his movies, right?
Del Toro said of his version, "What I'm trying to do is take the myth and do something with it, but combining elements of Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein without making it just a classical myth of the monster. The best moments in my mind of Frankenstein, of the novel, are yet to be filmed. The only guy that has ever nailed for me the emptiness, not the tragic, not the Miltonian dimension of the monster, but the emptiness is Christopher Lee in the Hammer films, where he really looks like something obscenely alive. Boris Karloff has the tragedy element nailed down, but there are so many versions, including that great screenplay by Darabont that was ultimately not really filmed." I think early on he's signaling that he's not making necessarily the most faithful adaptation.
Yeah, it's like he kind of is and isn't, right? And you can see why this leads to confusion, because he's like, yeah, it's very faithful, but also Bride of Frankenstein, which was not written by Mary Shelley. This was a later thing done in the movies. So the idea that you're introducing Bride of Frankenstein into this story is immediately going to change things. And I saw a lot of people say, like, Del Toro loves to tell a Beauty and the Beast style story about a monster and someone falling in love with them. It felt like he wanted that to be what this story is also about. Without getting too spoilery. I cannot wait to talk about that, by the way.
I cannot wait. But you're right. And then when I'd heard, oh, it's a really faithful adaptation, I think that is part of what set me up to not like it as much the first time I saw it, because I was like, yeah. Yeah,
because ultimately the original Frankenstein is not a Beauty and the Beast story. It's not a love story about about someone falling in love with the monster. Like, that doesn't happen.
Basically, he started to develop the Frankenstein film with Universal, and then eventually it was put on hold because they started developing their Dark Universe franchise, which didn't end up panning out. He was put on pause. Then he was kind of helping develop something for the Dark Universe. There's all kinds of stuff about him having like Doug Jones, his frequent collaborator, as somebody who would play the monster. He had Benedict Cumberbatch for the role in like 2013, he mentioned. In 2016, he said, Frankenstein to me is the pinnacle of everything. And part of me wants to do a version of it. Part of me has for more than 25 years chickened out of making it. I dream I can make the greatest Frankenstein ever, but then if you make it, you've made it. Whether it's great or not, it's done. You cannot dream about it anymore. That's the tragedy of a filmmaker. You landed a 10 or you landed a 6.5, but you were at the Olympics already and you were judged. So I think he's like always grappled with like, can I pull this off? This is the thing that's kind of always been in my mind. And I heard him say that the first version that he ever experienced was that Boris Karloff, James Whale film. He saw it on TV and then a few of the other Hammer films. Then he would eventually go on to read Mary Shelley's work, and then it would stick with him for such a long time. And you can see the influence in so many of his works, like Kronos, absolutely. And he says like his point is along the way, he says like Pinocchio is basically in essence to him a Frankenstein story. And that's interesting because you think of like Geppetto and Pinocchio, and then you think of Victor and the creature, and you can kind of see where he's going with this adaptation and what he's interested in talking about.
Well, and that also really ties into the whole fatherhood angle, which he leans on for this movie,
In 2023, the project was revived by Netflix, with whom Del Toro had signed a multi-year deal to produce projects, which we talked about him. I should have said this already. We talked about Del Toro with Cabinet of Curiosities, but he didn't, he was more of the producer on that. And then also the stop motion Pinocchio.
Which we love, by the way. If you want to check those episodes out. Yeah.
Following the win of Guillermo Del Toro's Pinocchio in 2022 at the Academy Awards for Best Animated Feature, Variety revealed that he was set to write and direct the Frankenstein feature with Andrew Garfield as the monster. Oscar Isaac and Mia Goth were already on.
Interesting, okay.
Eventually, due to scheduling conflicts from the SAG-AFTRA strikes, Andrew Garfield had to step away, and this is when Jacob Elordi comes in. And everything had already, the prosthetics and sort of the design of the creature and all this other stuff had already gone towards the Andrew Garfield version. And so very quickly they had to create this Jacob Elordi version, because I guess they said they had like something like 9 months or like leading up to the film before they needed to have his creature ready to go. And when Garfield stepped away, they completely redesigned the look of the creature.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Which I'll be excited to get your takes on how Jacob Elordi looked in this role. Del Toro explained about his own approach to this adaptation. What I find beautiful is that you create a universal myth, whether it's Frankenstein, Pinocchio, Dracula, or Sherlock Holmes. The myth itself rises so far above the original material that any interpretation is equally faithful if done with sincerity, power, and personality. If you think in terms of fidelity to the canon, you would be completely paralyzed. So again, I'm trying to paint a picture.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's setting up
of his take.
He's setting up like, hey, this isn't super faithful, but maybe that wasn't getting through to people as much as the, hey, this is supposed to be a really faithful version.
And maybe that wasn't getting through to the marketing department and other things as well. Some of the influences that Del Toro said that he had in making the film, it was a religion for me. Since I was a kid, I was raised very Catholic. I never quite understood the saints. And then I saw Boris Karloff on the screen. I understood what a saint or a messiah looked like. So I've been following the creature since I was a kid. And I always waited for the movie to be done in the right conditions, both creatively in terms of achieving the scope that it needed for me to make it different, to make it at a scale you could reconstruct the whole world. And then he acknowledged James Whale's adaptation and the 1935 sequel Bride of Frankenstein as major influences as well. Another person that I think we should absolutely talk about is the composer, Alexandre Desplat. He was a longtime collaborator. He worked on The Shape of Water, Pinocchio, and in approaching this film, he said that Guillermo's cinema is very lyrical and my music is rather lyrical too. So I think the music of Frankenstein will be something very lyrical and emotional. I'm not trying to write horrific music. It sounds like all along the way the process was going to be not a horror film, which was surprising to me. That was so like I would think that like some of my favorite things from Del Toro is when he leans into more of the horrific elements. And in recent memory, he has, I guess Crimson Peak would be one of the more recent kind of gothic horror films. But it seems like he's found something that's stuck with him that has kind of been a through line of storytelling for him for a little while here. So production design, Tamara Diverell described building Frankenstein's world like constructing an old opera, physical, tactile, layered, and human. Sets were built with real materials, not just blue screen placeholders. And there's also a documentary. I don't know if either of you had a chance to watch that on Netflix. There's like kind of the making of.
No, I didn't.
very interesting, and like it's cool to see all of the effort that went into creating it. But they really did build most of what you see in this film, and I agree, Luke. There's like a little tinge of like something that looks modern in terms of the filmmaking process, but the techniques that they were using, like I saw evidence of all of the things that you would see in a film that was made long ago, and it's really interesting. They're using like large single source lighting and using everything else as like bounce or fill to like really create like a naturalistic look to like, you know, this period, rather than something that looks intentionally lit, or something that looks like Hollywood lit.
Was it,
so like,
do you know if it was filmed digitally or if it was on film, like on film?
It was digital. Yeah.
I
digital.
thought so. That maybe there's a bit of that too.
Maybe some. I think I would defy most viewers to try to tell me what is film and what's digital. If they were given a side-by-side comparison, it would be difficult for me to pick out. Because although you do get some textural things and some blooms, and there's so much emulation that you can do with digital that makes it look so similar to film that it's very hard to pick out. But yeah, I mean, it's possible that you're picking up on some.
I've heard that's part of what people react to in that sort of modern look is just the rise of digital.
It's the digital workflow more than it's whether it's shot on digital or shot on film. It's more so like you have, you know, if in film you have a film stock and then you have the color process, and in digital you're basically shooting and then you're bringing a bunch of other artists in to build to the director of photography's like image look and the director's look at like how they want it to be seen. And then once you have to like add in certain layering effects, things like that weren't necessarily added on to like old 70s 80s films, you get a sense that like that process is adding in artifacts or small things that are like more perceptible, but the actual like out of camera isn't necessarily going to be the thing that changes whether somebody thinks it looks.
I would say it's also digital seems cleaner to me. Like
sure.
there's this new there's an emphasis on everything being sort of crystal clear.
It's a sharpness
and
thing,
sharp. And I think there's been I've just seen a lot of people talking about missing some of the, I don't know, kind of graininess of the old days. Is this something? I'm just curious, Rachel. Is this something you have any thoughts on? Have you even noticed this? Is this something you think about with modern films and the way they look?
That is, I wish I could offer something smart on that topic, but yeah, I don't really. Yeah, I mean,
that's fair.
Yeah, I mean,
don't want to leave you out of it.
Yeah, that's great. It was mainly the CG that stood out to me, I guess, in terms of like the look of the things. I mean, in terms of if I were going to criticize, like, but most of the movie was beautiful, so maybe the CG stood out to me more, like the animals in particular, I should say.
Yeah. Wolves are hard. Wolves are hard.
Yeah. Deer.
And the deer. Yeah, it's a lot of living things are where you're going to struggle because we're so familiar with what they look like.
And the wolves were making eye contact. Like, yeah. I was kind of like, animals don't make eye contact. It was like a really, really weird, like, where are they? Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. I get it. The struggle's real.
Yeah, that's one of the things that separates dogs from wolves and is like the dogs will make eye contact and often wolves won't. Yeah, it's interesting.
To wrap up what we were talking about, though, just the pipeline for a lot of the best filmmakers these days are finding ways to introduce like stylistic or imperfections to their film, to their digital film, whatever they're shooting on. And that can come through glass that they're shooting on, because today's modern glass can be incredibly sharp. But if you're shooting on something that's like older, has more character, things like that, those are things that you reach for. But if you just go get the newest cinema camera and you put the nicest possible Supreme Prime lenses on them, it's going to be so sharp. It's going to look like, surgical or something, and that's not, people are accustomed to seeing like a certain texture and they want to see that, even if that's not, if it doesn't, it almost, a lot of filmmakers like will say like back in the day they would take their film and they'd run it through the parking lot and drag it through the parking lot to beat it up, to give it like more texture, to give it something else. And I feel like that's in a digital sense, people try to do that some now. They try to run their film through the parking lot to add something to it so that it doesn't look like everything else. It looks different. It looks unique. Especially when it serves the story.
Yeah. Or you can be like Nolan and just shoot on film regardless.
Yeah, but even still, you got to choose your glass. There's a lot of different things. Yeah. We're talking cinematography. I want to talk about Dan Laustin as well. He's a longtime collaborator with Del Toro. He deployed high contrast lighting, compositions rich with German expressionist echo, giving the film dreamlike textures that feels both old and modern. Into costuming, I in this documentary and throughout some of the press tour, I've seen Kate Hawley, who was the head of that department, talk about how there was like a push to have it look modern. And like you were talking about before, Luke, I even Del Toro said something about like he wanted Victor to walk around like Bowie or Mick Jagger or something like that. And like there's a bit of that going on where like there's a modernity that's being added to a very classical film, and meanwhile all this Gothic architecture, and so there is a juxtaposition there that I think it can be drawing attention to that.
Oh, I had a question, and I don't know if I'm misremembering or not. Was at any point this supposed to be a mini series and then it got changed into a movie?
I did hear along the process, like way back, like, you know, over 10 plus years ago, I read something about Del Toro saying he wanted to tell the story in 2 different movies because of how rich the source material was and stuff. So maybe there's that, but it wasn't anything with this Netflix adaptation.
Because I agree. I know earlier you said something about the pace, Rachel, and that's one of the things that in both viewings, I remember in the theater, I really felt it, of how this movie's kind of weirdly paced and at times drags, and it felt like it was paced as if there were 2 different sort of siloed stories that were going to occur back to back. I'm like, this almost could have been a 2-part miniseries or 2 films, so that doesn't shock me to hear. I wonder if that's like a leftover of an early script or something, and how he divided that up. I've also heard, I heard rumblings about there being a director's cut version of this that might come out at some point.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
I'm pretty sure, unless I dreamt it. I'll have to look and confirm. Just found it. There's a story that was reported 6 days ago. I believe this is the first story, that Del Toro's Frankenstein will officially get an extended cut.
Interesting.
So yeah, they got more. He revealed that he's working on an extended cut and referred to it as all the stitches cut for the loyal fans.
Interesting.
Cute.
All the stitches thing did remind me of something I was going to say before. It's just like, so I mentioned like he has an extensive background in like special effects. So he is the type of filmmaker that like he's going into the scene and he's showing examples of like how he might want to like place a body or put more blood here, and he's getting his hands dirty with the effects and helping touch up and that kind of thing. So it's really cool to see him like take such an active hand in it. And the effects work in this, like, while like a lot of this practical stuff, the ship's real, they really built a full-size ship that's built on a gimbal, and like it's all, you know, all the actors are being thrown around and stuff. Like they built like the inside of the cabin. That ship is like actually the cabin inside looks like it does in the film.
Wow.
They built the laboratory, which is an insane set to build.
That's incredible.
They built so much of this, and it's so cool to see the actors like interacting with the environment in this way. And like it really did look like my imagination of what the lab may look like. What the ship scene is like. It's incredibly epic for such a small part of the original story, just the bookends or the framing device. But yeah, so I think this is a good point for us to move into plot. This will give us free reign to talk about everything, and we can hash it all out. So plot starts out, there's a prelude. In 1857, Horisont, a Royal Danish Navy ship sailing for the North Pole, becomes trapped in ice. Alerted to an explosion in the distance, Captain Anderson and his men discover a gravely injured Victor Frankenstein. Upon bringing him aboard, the crew is attacked by a creature who demands Victor's surrender. Anderson uses a blunderbuss to sink the creature into the water. Victor explains that he created the creature and recounts the events leading to its creation. Then we get into part 1, Victor's tale. Victor's mother dies giving birth to his younger brother, William, who becomes the favorite of their renowned aristocratic father. Grieving his mother and resenting his abusive father, Victor becomes a brilliant, arrogant surgeon obsessed with curing death through science. He's expelled from the Royal College of Surgeons in Edinburgh for reanimating corpses, which a disciplinary tribunal denounces as sacrilege. Arms merchant Heinrich Harlander, impressed by his presentation, offers Victor unlimited funding and an isolated tower to continue his experiments under an unnamed condition. Enlisting William's assistance in building his laboratory, Victor becomes smitten with Elizabeth, Harlander's niece and William's fiancée, who declines his advances. When an impatient Harlander demands results within a week, Victor fashions body parts from criminals and soldiers killed in the ongoing Crimean War into a body to reanimate. Harlander reveals he is dying of syphilis and unveils his single condition. He wants his brain transplanted into the body of the creature. When Victor refuses, Harlander attempts to sabotage the experiment but falls to his death, Lightning strikes the creature as planned, but it fails to reanimate. The following morning, Victor finds the creature alive. He marvels at its immense strength and ability to rapidly heal wounds, but can only teach it to speak one word, Victor. Frustrated by his lack of intellectual growth, Victor begins to imitate his father's cruel discipline and becomes afraid of the creature's physical strength. Visiting with William, Elizabeth questions Victor's treatment of the creature and bonds with him, teaching him to speak her name. When William finds Harlander's body, Victor dishonestly claims the creature killed him in a fit of rage. After sending them away, Victor sets his lab ablaze with the creature inside. Hearing the creature call his name, Victor remorsefully attempts to re-enter the tower, but it explodes, severing his leg. In the present, the creature boards the ship, confronts the captain, and shares his own story.
All right, Rachel, I feel like I want to hear from you. I feel like we've been talking a lot. So what are your thoughts on the start of this movie, the Victor storyline, and how it departs from the original? Like, what did you like? What did you dislike?
First of all, the first part of the movie is my favorite. It's dark. It's gritty. I like the horror of it. I like the madness of it. I actually sort of liked Victor as sort of more of a Byronic hero. So in the book, he's kind of like, he faints a lot and he's kind of a weakling and he's kind of pathetic. And in this movie, it was interesting that I could tell that there was a lot drawn from the other romantics in Mary Shelley's era, in addition to her own work. And so he looks kind of like Heathcliff. I like, you know what I mean? He's got the look, so he's.
I wonder if that's a little bit of the Kenneth Branagh carryover, because he was he was the director in that version, and he was Victor Frankenstein, so he chose to. I think he played himself up to be like kind of a sex symbol.
Hot Victor, right out of that Darabont version.
I really enjoyed just how extra the childhood story is. So you've got like the overbearing father, all the lectures like where he's terrorizing his son about why are women's hearts smaller than men's, and what is it, and the son's kind of like, well, it's because their bodies are smaller, and his dad's like, yes, exactly, there's no feelings found in meat, or I forget what the exact line is, but it's hilarious. But I like how it's this anti-sentimental sort of thing where it's like his dad is all about like, we're not talking about feelings, we're talking about bodies, and that's what medicine is. Fascinating. There's a lot to talk about with the fact that Mia Goth plays both the mother and Elizabeth. We'll probably have to get into that more later on. And I think
I think it's open to talk about, because I think something Oedipal is definitely being touched on here.
Yeah, and I think the fact that she's a mother figure twice in the movie, so she's Victor's mother and then she's kind of the creature's mother, and then you get like that she's also sort of their love interest. Like she's literally
and jealousy over.
Ooh, it's weird.
Yeah,
some weird shit right there.
Did you notice that Victor drinks milk throughout the movie?
I did.
No. Oh, it's weird.
He drinks milk like every time you see him drink something. It's a glass of
milk. Which is like a classic like villainous kind of thing to do in film these days. Like
yeah, but also when we're talking about Oedipus and everything. Yeah.
I mean, I thought the entire first half was. I mean, up until when we were just from Victor's point of view, it was kind of the movie I wanted. It was for the adaptation I wanted. It was dark, and even though Victor is a lot more over the top dark than he is in the book, and much more of a jerk. I was like, I'm kind of here for this version. Like, yeah, I'll go with this. Like, I was not unhappy about that because at least it was kind of a commitment. I like that it was a really strong commitment to who he is.
It's interesting because it's like in isolation, I can see I can see what you like about it. It's like I wish that the monster had maybe met that energy in its own way, and instead
that's what I expected. I was like, okay, great.
Yeah. Instead, it's like because he is so clearly villainous by at least the end of that first half. I mean, he's beating the monster with like a stick. He's full on become his own father at this point. He's jealous. He's being ridiculous and expecting. He's like so mad that the monster hasn't like learned how to speak clearly in like a month. Like it's like or less, like weeks. I don't know how long it's supposed to have been, but it's not that long. And he's like, "How dare you not be able to like talk to me?"
And let's talk about that for a minute. Okay, so you're Victor. Okay. You have just created life from a pile of dead flesh. And as soon as you do that, it speaks a word. It speaks its first words. Not only have you achieved life out of a corpse, but it has said a word on its first day alive. And then you want to go burn it and you're mad about that? I was just like, oh my gosh. Anyway, it was like hilarious. My first thought was like, this man needs to be around a baby sometime.
I know, right?
Just see like...
Isn't that like usually what babies say first too? Like their parents' name?
Like mama or...
Yeah, something like that, yeah. And that's basically what the monster says.
But it takes, do you actually know developmentally when babies say their first word?
No.
1 year is 12 months. Is like that's the milestone for when you say your first word. It can be a little earlier later. But I was like, you got a whole year to do that. And like, man, he's on this guy's first day. He's like already a prodigy. So my day job, I'm a speech language pathologist. So like my jam is sort of communication disorders and like how language develops. And so I was like, whoa, if that corpse did that on day one.
I kept thinking about that while watching this movie this time, because I knew we were going to talk with you about it, and I'm like, there's so much about him like trying to learn the language, and then like we'll get to his story and how he like is watching the cards and stuff. I'd be curious to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I have some history to bring into that. We'll talk about that.
Okay, cool.
There, but yeah.
But yeah, so just back to this first part, I agree that this has a lot of the like more horrific elements. We see a lot of body horror with the animated like sort of spinal column and skull and arm scene, and that was the one that, by the way, that I was referencing earlier that I thought looked really good this time. But on the screen when I saw it projected, it looked pretty bad. Like I don't know. I think maybe they did do another pass on it or something. But like it was a cool moment, but I just didn't think the effect looked great. And then this time I didn't have that problem. I thought it looked great, like pretty much throughout that whole moment. So interesting difference there. But yeah, I liked this sort of attention to the horror. You do definitely see some of this like broadening of character beats happening as we see like Victor. I mean, I don't know, like him wearing red gloves is very on the nose, right? Like blood on his hands. He's like he's so cavalier about death, and you know, he walks up to one of the guys who's about to get hung, and he smells his breath. And he's like, "Oh, you're lucky you're about to get hung. You would have been dead in a year." And it's like, I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that he's getting bodies from the battlefield too, and that like we see. Yeah, anyway, that was great.
What did you think of like Oscar Isaac's portrayal of Victor too? Like the choices that were made outside of maybe like how it was deviating.
Mm-hmm.
I liked him. Yeah, I thought. So I had this whole joke with my spouse that I'm sort of face blind to actors if they're sunk deeply enough into their role. And so after we watched it later on, someone said Oscar Isaac was great in that movie, and I was like, Oscar Isaac was in that movie, which really tells on me right there. Well, I thought he was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed him. Yeah.
I think that's a huge compliment. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I know.
I generally liked him. I think, especially in this first half, I think this is some of his best stuff.
I liked the scene where he's tossing the ball up in the air, and I read a thing about how like he really did that. Like he had to like the scene plays out. It's a pretty long scene, and he like has to like make sure he's catching the ball while he's acting. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like he's doing those things at the same time.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then I thought it was engaging. I thought he was going really big with the performance. And it's not like what I maybe expected, but it was fun.
Yeah, the movie opens with the big action sort of moment of the attack of the monster onto the ship. Kills, I think said 6 men is what the captain reports, although it looked like more than that. But this starts something that we'll get to as we go on. But like every person the monster kills is either in self-defense or by accident.
Right.
So that begins here. Like everybody that he kills attacks him first. So we're all like, I don't know, you don't feel like particularly bad for any of these people.
He is pretty good at brutally killing people. He's
very
like
good at it.
necks with a quick swift karate chop.
Yeah, some good action, honestly, I thought. Some very cool looking stuff, very stylized at the house, like the way the caskets look. Apparently this is a real thing.
Yes, the casket.
Which I didn't know, but apparently that is a real thing where you could like put the mask on and stuff, like and reveal the face underneath.
Amazing detail, by the way.
Deranged.
Like it looks great on screen.
It's so great with the red.
Yeah, I think it was a quite high priced item that had like a period where it was popular that I think was around this time, if memory serves. So it was a very cool detail for Del Toro to use here.
I got a big thing that I think we should talk about too. What do you guys think of the design of Jacob Elordi's creature?
Yeah.
Ooh. It actually, in some ways, to me, felt the most like how they describe the creature in the book. Because in the book, Victor builds this creature out of meat. And as he's building it, he's like, I'm going to make some improvements and make this like an even better man. And so he's like carefully selecting all of his favorite, like, here's the very best set of ears and the very best, I don't know, like muscles. And he kind of puts them all together. And then when it comes to life, it's hideous. He's like, oh no. Yeah. And I think it gave me that effect where it's like the patchworkness, but one where you can see why someone would have thought why the creature was handsome. So it's like when the creature's not moving, you're like, oh, he's kind of a handsome, hot Frankenstein, and he moves, and you're like, okay, yeah, it's a little disturbing.
Because in the book, it's almost like you would imagine that he's built this Adonis of some kind, and then he sees the combined effect of it, and he's like, oh my god, it's hideous. And that's something where the book can operate that I can sort of buy into more than I was able to in the movie, in the sense of like, as soon as you see this, you're like, this is not a human. There's something wrong. This is a monster. And like so many people like have that reaction in the book, and I think it's kind of understandable because we can't really see what they're seeing. In the movie, I was like, every so often people are seeing a man-shaped figure wearing a coat, and they just see long like hair, and then they're just like, shoot that thing immediately. And I'm like, that is a person until proven otherwise. That's a person. Yeah. I don't know what
that's
you're talking
humanoid.
about.
It's a humanoid figure. You're just going to start shooting and ask questions later is a crazy thing.
It happens so many times in this movie.
Yeah.
So I think he's like trying to play with that idea of like there's just something wrong and people can immediately tell, but like it's hard to convey it because the one side effect of having this like fairly hot looking version of the monster is that it looks pretty human to me.
Yeah.
So I do love the way he played it, by the way, especially early on when he was this like toddler, kind of like super awkward in his own body, kind of lumbering around when he's standing at the foot of the bed. Is such a cool moment. There is still like kind of a fear of the power. I thought that was really well portrayed. They added like a real bass to his voice, I think, to like kind of imply a certain power to this character. And then just every now and then would show some strength or some anger over something would happen, and all of a sudden you'd be like, oh shit, this is dangerous. And I thought that was all well done.
Yeah, so generally I thought Elordi had a really cool performance here. Like it's a difficult thing to pull off. Of course, like they're doing the hot creature thing where like he's got like an insane body and like he's also just like a really interesting proportioned man, right? Like he's really tall, slender, but also like built. And so like it fits kind of what this idea of like what we could have imagined from Mary Shelley's original material, but like specifically the body control that I saw out of Elordi was surprising to me. Like I saw someone online say, or maybe it was in that documentary, they said that he was like kind of panther-like in the way that he would move his body around, and like the way that like individual parts were kind of like slower to react than others. And that was something for me. I was like, the physicality of the role, I feel like was at least, if not like, maybe a perfect depiction, it was a very interesting one. And it was sufficiently innocent. He drew me into the point where I'm like, this is a tragic thing to happen to this innocent, and I'm like, it was a little surprising to me that he's a borderline superhero. Just incredible strength, but then also the healing factor of just like healing from anything, or watching him heal from like
he's
ridiculous
Wolverine
damage
in healing ability, and he's like Captain America in strength ability. So he has definitely got a bit of that. And personality,
He's angelically good, yes.
No, and that's true because he is like, you just feel bad for that. He's a wounded puppy. He's a baby. He's a toddler. He's being abused. He's being misunderstood. Everything he does, you're like, it's self-defense. He doesn't know any better. It's an accident. And Victor turns into basically a monster.
Or he's just standing there and someone's dead in the room with him. That's
he just happens to be nearby, and then someone sees him and is like, that's a monster, and he clearly killed that. Yeah, don't pay attention to all the dead wolves in the room. Who knows why they're there.
How that happened.
But I want to talk, before we move on from part one, because I think there's a lot to talk about with the monster when we get to part two, is Henry, I forget what his last name, Henry, so that's the book character, and then he's been sort of replaced with this Christoph Waltz character in the movie, who's this like uncle, kind of benefactor character, who provides the money to fund this operation, and has this ulterior motive, which is revealed that he has syphilis and he's dying, and he wants his brain to be put in this body so that he can achieve this extended life. And I think this is an interesting element to bring into the story because it's not in the book. And it felt to me like a modern take. Like I was getting a little bit, especially on my rewatch, I was getting a little bit of like technocrat, tech bro kind of vibes from him. Like, I have all this money, I'm going to use it to try and conquer death. And yet, your brain is diseased. You are not worthy, essentially, is what he gets told. And so he's beyond saving. I don't know. I just felt like this was some sort of modern commentary that he was bringing in. It was an interesting take. It does change the dynamic a little bit of what's going on here. And then, Christoph Waltz was an interesting casting for this because I love him as a performer. I felt like he was just kind of okay in this role. I thought there was one scene where he really shined, and it was when he was able to come into the bathroom and reestablish his control over the situation. Because he comes in, and he's like, all of a sudden, he's just like, no, you don't need to leave. There's no secrets among friends, basically. And he starts like peeing, and he's like, oh, listen to the chime of that porcelain or whatever to a man's stream. It's like a really weird way he's like talking to him, and it reminded me a little bit of just like him in other movies where he is like this character who has supreme control over the moment. And to me, that was him reestablishing like, yes, I have been providing you with all this money, but don't forget that it can go away in an instant. Because he's like, you don't have any time anymore. This needs to happen now. And so I thought that was like his best moment. I'm like, oh, this is why you cast him to play this character. But I don't know, the rest of it, it was just kind of fine. I don't know, like, and then he ends up dying. Like, it felt like a modern take on something that they were trying to bring in. But yeah, what were your thoughts on this change and what this brought into the story?
The main thought I had about him was, man, it's a shame that Victor didn't just put the brain in the body, because it would have worked because of the healing factor.
Right? Yeah, probably, actually.
Cured the syphilis, like, it would have been fine.
That would have been a different movie.
I know, right? There you go. Yeah.
I generally thought the character was all right. I thought that he was always going to be in place to kind of resist this like budding romance that they seem to be building with Victor and Elizabeth. And he didn't really like play as I thought it was going to. I thought he was going to kind of resist. He even says
that later, like he kind of implies that he was allowing it to happen as part of his like. He's like, I give you everything. I even gave you
have
Elizabeth.
Everything, which is gross. Considering that's like a family member and just like the treatment of her in general.
Also, like, his brother's fiance. It was just anyway, it's a lot there. I'm not sure it's going to work the way you think it's going to, bro.
Well, I guess that's a good reason, a good time to talk about Mia Goth's Elizabeth as well. Like, what thoughts on her?
Costuming. Can we talk about her costuming first of all?
Cool. Yeah.
Every single costume she wears is amazing. I noticed that there's like a color motif going on with, her and Victor. So Victor's always got something red on him, and she's kind of got, her motif is life, obviously. So she's got the greens and the blues.
Yeah, blue and green for sure, yeah. And then other characters have yellows, I noticed. I don't know if that's supposed to be neutral, but like the uncle had a lot of yellow. I think he had yellow gloves. I'm trying to remember who. But yeah, there was a lot of yellow with some other characters.
And I feel like that for me, her look was why I go to see Del Toro movies. Like, it's just so great, so extra and over the top and almost otherworldly. I really, really, really enjoyed her in this movie, even though the whole Freudian things, I'm kind of neutral on it. I was kind of like, I don't like necessarily need this in my Frankenstein, but like, she's just so great that I enjoyed her performance. I like how she could be calm and collected, but also not a total pushover. Like, I like that she's the person to, fight for the monster's humanity or the creature's humanity, and like to state the obvious to Victor that, like, I still think that Victor should have recognized that his creation didn't need to be destroyed because he couldn't speak in full sentences yet. But anyway, I enjoyed her a lot. I think she was great.
Yeah, she's the butterfly in the jar, right?
Yeah.
Basically, that's her symbol, and that's what she is.
She also had the scene where she, rejects Victor, which I think is like important for him, because it's like she totally has agency and can be like, no, fuck, like, this isn't what I, signed up for. This isn't, you can't have everything your way. And that kind of like causes him to descend into his madness a little more. But yeah, I thought she was pretty captivating on screen. I like the look just generally of like what they were going for with her is so cool.
I honestly don't know what she saw in Victor other than the fact that I guess he's hot. Oscar Isaac.
Yeah. He's kind of hot.
He's a real bad boy, I guess, so there's that going for him. But that guy, like, that guy's bad news. I think you could tell from the jump.
Well, I think she was interested in the fact that he had like flayed men like all over his, all over his desks and stuff, and she thought that was intriguing at least.
Love that.
How about the interaction with the creatures? We do get up to that point where she's like goes down and sees this, and then that strange budding romance there.
Yeah, immediately attracted.
If I could even call it that, I don't know. If
she's immediately like hands kind of gently caressing the chest, like she's into it from the jump.
Yeah,
a little weird considering he's basically a toddler.
Yeah. Okay.
Weird's
gonna be devil's advocate here for a minute. Himbo energy. He's got himbo energy.
For sure.
So maybe that's the appeal. So it's like this big, gorgeous, fully grown man who's not corrupted by the patriarchy yet,
In theory, he's got the brain of an adult, right? Like in theory, but it's like
right.
He's kind of both an adult and a child.
The whole himbo thing is the whole idea is that an attractive man who's not tainted by like misogyny, and maybe he's that. So it's like he's just pure. He's come into the world, and he's just gonna sit there and be gorgeous and say your name. Like, maybe what more do you need?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I do think she was attracted to that too, right? Yeah. She was attracted to the innocence, to the sense that he doesn't have the baggage of the world and all that other stuff. And that's like a strange thing to say because of the implication that he's young, but at the same time, like the like you said, Rachel, like the pureness of that.
Yeah, he's not dangerous to her in the same way that like Victor's dangerous to her.
Sure. And if I said that she is sort of the butterfly in the jar, he absolutely is a butterfly in a jar. She sees him. He's got shackles on. He's been imprisoned. He's innocent. He doesn't understand the world. So she recognizes like a kindred spirit there, I think.
And she's his protector. So I think that's the thing where, they're both Victor's victims, but she has more agency than the monster does or the creature does. And so I think that I like that it shows her character and, what she will and won't tolerate. So, we don't really care how hot and Byronic. I mean, there's a whole other thing to talk about here with like Byronic, like Lord Byron and Mary Shelley and their whole connection.
We talked about this in our book episode where we talked about the horny writers retreat, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But it's like Lord Byron is just not a good person. And,
Yeah. To get ahead of, just because we were talking about him, just to get ahead of it, interesting choice to end the movie on a Lord Byron quote.
No, I fucking hated it. I screamed.
And by interesting, I mean I didn't like it. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to lead you to it, but I wanted to set you up.
No, I literally screamed and say we're shutting off the movie. I didn't even watch the credits. I was so mad.
How do you put the final word of the movie is Lord Byron, and this is Mary Shelley's fucking movie? Like, how dare you?
I don't know.
That feels like an odd choice for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand that. I did want to talk about that set where he's contained to that like kind of white porcelain tiles everywhere and the kind of river thing. I thought that was a really cool set that they built as well. And from what I understand, all of those columns, because they shot a lot of it on cranes, all of those columns were like removable and they could fly cranes all through there. And just like him being chained down there, and how like inhumane that feels, and how like it's just like he's thrown away with the trash down there, and like
literally right by the trash chute.
It looks like a crypt.
Yeah. And with the fire being built up and how the tragedy of that, I got caught up in that and I was like emotional. I was like, get him the fuck out of here. He doesn't deserve this. But yeah, I just thought it was cool to mention that that was almost like some kind of like sanitarium or something, like some sort of like strange, like
it had a medical feel to it for sure.
Medical kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
So here's where I want to, if I can do a little digression into the history of how we've treated people with disabilities. I actually think it's going to tie into this point in the movie. So like, and also the flashcards we saw when he was learning how to speak and read. I did not prepare notes on this because I'm doing this from memory. But around after the French Revolution, so I think early 1800s, there was this movement in France where like several people were like, we're actually going to try to educate people that we thought were previously considered not able to educate. So there used to be sanitariums that were full of people, like usually it was like the deaf, like people with intellectual disabilities. And then you just throw poor people in there and maybe criminals, and they'll all be kind of in the same little house. And
women who were unhappy in their marriages.
Lots of things like that. Exactly. Just kind of like people that it's just the human trash. Like you just put them in there. Yeah. And around after the French Revolution, like there was this movement to like, people started getting curious about like the brotherhood of man and the fact that like maybe we could actually do something for these people and, give them the power to like join the community and like have a voice. And so this is around the time that like a lot of our modern sign languages were invented. So like American Sign Language comes from French Sign Language. And it came from this point in time where they started opening schools for the deaf to actually train these people to be able to communicate in sign language and to even speak. And it unlocked like a lot of doors for people. And the same era was when you had, if you've ever heard of The Wild Boy of Avignon, it's basically like this case study of a feral child where like they found some kid wandering out in the middle of nowhere in France.
I have heard about that. Yeah.
His name was Victor, which is kind of interesting. There's a connection there. But and like he was actually brought to one of these schools for the deaf, and like this guy made it his life's project to try to educate this kid into being able to speak. And it's a fascinating case study, and some of the tools this guy invented to try to progress this kid's speech and get him to like back up to like educated up to like a typical level have become our tools we still use in special education to this day. Like he invented like multiple, and in speech therapy, like he invented these groundbreaking foundational tools for how do you get a person who has no concept of language to like how you start building conceptions of language and conceptions of reading and writing. And like he was never able to get that kid all the way up to what he wanted back in the day. And like, he considered the whole project a failure, but it's funny how that now when we look back on it, like this person probably had like cognitive delays and probably had like just your brain changes when you're starved and when you're not like put in like, care when you're younger. And like, and he actually made quite a bit of success with this person. And so when I saw that portion of the movie, so like when Elizabeth is teaching the creature how to speak, the sanitarium like dungeon he's in. Yeah,
she's like, it's like a sound from your throat that you make, and
like having him touch, like literally touch the throat to understand that your voice turns off and on when we speak. And like, it just made me think that there's a reference there to like that actual moment in history that was happening when they were inventing these techniques, and how it's been life-changing for since then for so many people. So it's pretty cool they included that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't realize any of that. That's super cool. I want to read more about. That's like it's like the feral child kind of, like he was in the woods or something, right?
Yeah, I think there's a book.
Yeah.
Oh, I can look it up later and tell you.
Yeah.
But there's a really great book where someone reviews all the case history of this like through a more modern lens, and it's a beautiful read. It's like very like life affirming.
I want to check that out. Yeah,
it's
cool.
great.
I think we're ready for the second part, though, because we're going to get a lot more of the monster learning here.
Yes. All right, so part 2 is the creature's tale. The creature escapes the explosion and takes shelter in the mill gears of a family's farm. Over the next year, he secretly helps the family, providing them with large supplies of firewood and building a pen for their sheep. They thank their unseen benefactor as the spirit of the forest. When the rest of the family leaves for the mountains to hunt wolves, the creature befriends their blind patriarch, who teaches him to read and speak fluently. The creature journeys to the ruins of the laboratory where he discovers the truth about his creation and the address to Victor's estate. He returns to the farm to find the blind man being attacked by wolves, which the creature fights off before comforting his dying friend. The family returns and, mistakenly believing the creature killed the blind man, shoots him. After reviving, the creature realizes he cannot die and will spend eternity alone. He confronts Victor during William and Elizabeth's wedding, demanding the creation of a companion. Victor, fearing the possibility of the creature reproducing, adamantly refuses. The creature attacks him. Hearing the commotion, Elizabeth rushes in and embraces the creature. While attempting to shoot the creature, Victor shoots Elizabeth instead. William is wounded while attempting to rush the creature. Before dying, he calls Victor a monster. The creature carries Elizabeth to a cave and comforts her as she dies. Victor pursues the creature to the Arctic, where the creature attempts to destroy himself with a stick of dynamite but fails. A remorseful Victor and the creature reconcile, addressing each other as father and son, before Victor succumbs to his injuries. The creature frees the ship from the ice. Anderson decides to abandon his pursuit and sail back home. Alone, the creature reaches out to embrace the sunlight as Victor once taught him.
So my least favorite line got a shout out in that plot summary there. No, Victor, you're the monster, or whatever it was he says. Like, you are the monster.
Very on the nose.
Yeah. Could we be a little more subtle, please, Del Toro? Interesting. I was honestly thinking about this is referencing something you don't know about, Rachel, but we went on another podcast where we talked about Stranger Things, and without getting into the weeds on that, one of the things you brought up, James, was this push from Netflix to like have stuff be accessible to people as a second screen option.
Yeah.
And because of that, you need to like repeat things and explain things in a really easy to consume way.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this like Netflix coming in and being like, let's have him say at some point, you're the monster. That way everyone knows. Maybe I'm letting Del Toro off the hook a little bit too much with that, but I just did not need this like blatant speaking of the very obvious themes that had been established to this point in the movie.
I do feel like recently he's been more interested in being like because again, this is such a like reconciliation at the end that like feels so neat in a story that doesn't necessarily build to that or deserve that, and especially Mary Shelley's version. But I don't know. I think he's a sentimental guy. I think that he's just gotten to the point where like these kinds of, I don't know, dramatic moments have a lot of weight to him, and I feel like that was important for him. I kind of still agree that I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit when he said it, because I'm like, yeah, but I can also see someone being like, I want this for my film, and this is his vision. So I'm not going to say Netflix stepped in, and I don't think it's quite as egregious as some of the second screen stuff that I was referencing. But yeah, it's a good observation.
I was trying to give him an out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it's probably like your level of sentimentality and your tolerance for how much you want your theme stated outright. I'm sure is a matter of taste, because it reminds me of a similar love-hate relationship I have with like the Wachowski sisters' work, where they're writers and directors who like to just say the thing. Eventually, at some point in the movie, someone will say what the theme is. And that in that moment in Frankenstein reminded me of a very similar thing, where it's like now someone's just going to state the theme out loud, and like my taste would be for it to be more buried. But I know that some people like it's a valid style of telling a story in film and in books too. Like some people love for it to be that plain and just to have it said. And it's kind of romantic, I guess, like maybe the romantic in the the Gothic sense, if you will, like just kind of to say the feeling.
I agree. I think that is the style of story he's wanting to tell. He has built up this particular theme for his version of Frankenstein, and then he has the character say it just to drive it home. I don't personally need that in general, but also I think it stood out to me more because, again, of how nuanced Mary Shelley's story is.
Yes.
And so by comparison, it really stood out as like we've again, when I said bulldozed all nuance here, that was one of the lines that really established that for me, of like, there's no gray area here. Victor, you are the monster. And we've seen him full on become a monster at this point. You know, he's been awful. But let's back up a little bit and talk about the monster learning, because there's this kind of serene sequence right out of the book, essentially, where he's learning. He's kind of acting like the spirit of the forest for this family. He's learning from Walter Frey is the actor, or Filch from Harry Potter. Yeah. He's the grandfather here, and I don't know about you all, but I'm pretty sure he knows, or he at least suspects, that whatever they're talking about when they're talking about that creature that they shot in the woods, I think he suspects that creature is in the walls from the jump. Because at one point he like hears something and he looks at the walls and he has like a look on his face. So I think he knows he's there all along, which then explains a little bit of, you think it's a little hokey that he's like turning the card around so that someone can see it directly behind him. I think that's on purpose. I think he is aware that hole's there, maybe, or he suspects that he's being watched, and so I think the implication he's doing it on purpose.
I think that he perceived that there may be somebody around, or the spirit of the forest may have been not a spirit, but somebody around like that.
Well, he seems to think maybe a wounded soldier later on when he gets to feel him.
Yeah. But like also he's blind, or seemingly like partially blind, and so how like the way that he would know the holes behind and where to like,
I know. How would he know that? I don't know. Maybe he's been here all along and he knows this place really well before he was blind.
How would he know that this person would either be entertained or need that sort of
That
communication?
is an open question. You know, we're getting into surreal territory, but like this is in the book. Like this stuff, that's Mary Shelley. Because the monster absolutely learns language this way, basically.
Yeah, true.
So what I know about how we acquire language may not apply to like reanimated corpses.
Sure.
Who learns a word in his first day?
Yeah, and he's like reading. He's like reading books. Like next time we see
him, it's
him,
incredible. Like, I mean, so I would say first of all, his language development is absolutely incredible. Like, it happens really, really fast. But maybe we can just say that maybe he's got the structure already there in his adult brain.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of reactivating, or
it's
something.
Just that would make a lot of sense. But you're just having to reconnect the neurons a little bit, and and then he learns it all really. Or maybe because Victor was picking premium parts like for his corpse, maybe he just found a really great brain.
Well, there was a really interesting line where he says, I have dreams of men, like he says like many different men. And that was really interesting because to me that was implying that he's having dreams of like different people he has like their body parts, and yet he's having dreams of their lives. So that's an interesting, but like we don't really know how consciousness works. So like, I don't know. I'm more open to the idea of like, because we don't know. We think it has something to do with the material that we're made out of, but like how the property of consciousness arises from the material of our bodies is not something we understand. So the idea that there could be something going on here is, I think, plausible to me.
Yeah, and I think it's true that our consciousness is both it's made of meat, like the rest of us is. Like it is residing in a physical place in our bodies. And that it wouldn't surprise me that the creature has some brain damage from the brain being jostled around and killed. And you have like the hypoxia that comes from death, like you have a lack of oxygen to your brain, and so it's going to cause brain death. And so that said, the way that you usually learn how to speak for typically developing children, it's really a process of interactions. It's all social interaction type thing. So like, kids learn how to imitate because of how people respond back to them. And we know this because actually a lot of those like the wild child studies, or the wild, when children are kind of raised in isolation and they don't learn how to speak, and then the people try to rehabilitate them later on. Basically, the worst thing you can do to children is to ignore them and not like respond when they cry. There's a really, really sad study that came out of like this orphanage crisis in Romania, where I don't know if you know about that, like in the 90s, where there was this period of time where Romania had a policy under like a very restrictive government where women were not allowed to access birth control. And at the same time, there's a lot of social stigma around like children having disabilities. And so they had these like state orphanages where you could just drop your kid and like with no questions asked. And then you had like these giant buildings that were just packed full of like babies. And like you could walk in the room and the babies would not be crying. And their physical needs are being taken care of. So like the poor nurses who had so many kids to tend to would come in and like, you get a diaper change a couple times per day and you get fed. And so your physical needs are taken care of, but because there was no social interaction happening between like an adult and the kid, they had stopped associating crying with getting anything from it. And so therefore they all just stopped. And the case studies out of that are very, very sad because like the kids all grew up with like these really severe developmental delays and
Wow.
A lot of them just never really learn how to speak. And anyway.
So I guess that's like kind of a refutation of like the self-soothing thing that you hear that some people are doing for their kids now, right? Or have historically. It's like
let them
you
cry it
kind
out
of
or-
developmentally you would rather continue to interact.
to like respond and like it kind of I mean
I assume it's probably a balancing thing where you don't want to necessarily like every time jump in there
Reinforce
immediately because then
everything.
you might
yeah
encourage
you-
behavior in a different way. I don't know.
I think that it's kind of more. I mean, this is a tangent. We'll talk about it anyway.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's sort of more like if you think about there being like a couple of sliders you have with the kid, that there's like a safe range where anywhere in that range is fine. Where it's like, generally speaking, human beings are really adaptable, and as long as you kind of get enough of something, then you turn out pretty. Most of us turn out pretty okay. There's
But
probably
just
some
zero
nuance there.
contact.
But zero is bad. Like it's
Zero's
real
bad.
bad. And so, what we're seeing in the movie, I'll get back to Frankenstein now. So like, if I were to critique anything, it is a little unrealistic to me that he could learn just by observing and without there being a back and forth interaction. You could probably learn a foreign language that way if you already had a first language.
Right.
But what we know about language development, like, so some of the kids that I work with are kids who are like completely nonverbal. And when you build their language system from the ground up for a person who doesn't have language at all, like the very first thing you have to establish is like cause and effect. Like, when you do a thing, something else happens. So it's like, okay, every time you hit a certain button, I'll give you a cookie, so it's like, then you learn that's the cookie button. Now you're motivated. And so like, and then you can start building language. That button's going to mean want. This button's going to mean no. And then you kind of start getting power over your world, and you learn that communication gives you power and control and the ability to like shape your world. For our buddy, the creature, I'm going to say that my headcanon here is just that his brain already has those structures in there.
Yeah.
And that's why he's able to just jump straight into learning language. But I do like that there's something called phonemic awareness that the old man's doing. So it's kind of like you're developing association between the sounds of language and the meaning. And that's kind of what he's doing with the cards, where, we always do with alphabet, like, B stands for boy, and then you can start building that association.
I feel like the movie and book both are very vague about what brain is used. Definitely in the movie, I don't think we had any sense of like what brain, what head is primarily being used.
It could
Maybe
be like
it's a combination. I don't know. Yeah, it's never
all the
really
best parts.
Never really said. Yeah, so because if they did, I think that does open the door to the thought of like, well, whoever's brain's in there, that's who it is. So I think you have to be deliberately kind of vague about that.
But also how much, because the brainstem is also part of our consciousness, and
Sure.
So I'm like the spine.
Yeah, I like the idea of it being like a combination brain. We never saw any of that, but like maybe that's what it is.
I will say is just generally the spirit of the forest stuff, like, because not just because it's from Mary Shelley's material, but it works for me. I think it's really sweet, all that stuff. It's like nice to see some level of acceptance for the creature, and like that you can see where that goes in a positive direction if continued. I didn't love the idea that he like comes back and the wolves are scrapping him, but like means to an end, I guess, for the story.
Yeah. We had really tried to establish those wolves as being vicious killing machines so that we can cheer when he's ripping the faces off of some and throwing them into fires and stuff. I think that's the goal. I don't know, man. I feel bad for these wolves. I still wasn't on board. These are some of the more indefensible kills. He's literally saving this guy's life, so like I get it, but like the way he kills about it, I don't know. It's you're always gonna have a hard time making me completely hate a wolf in any movie. Maybe that's just a me thing.
It's also like, I think, showing a flash of like the rage that he's inherited from his father and that kind of stuff.
And also very interesting that the
That's a
huskies
great
we
point.
see later, I think, are all real, but the wolves are all CGI. So I think there's also like their monsters are CGI.
I did see, for what it's worth, they shot with reference dogs and possible wolves or something, but they ended up, if you want to show like that level of action, I think you have to have CG dogs.
Yeah.
Just can't get.
So yeah, this part I think is overall like in isolation, I like it. I did think this contributed to some of the pacing issues. I feel like we'd built to so much, and then now we're gonna come down and have like a pretty lengthy, slow sequence of the monster learning language. This works in a novel. I think in a film it felt kind of weird. I think this makes it feel kind of drawn out, and then we have to build up again to have a climax. But I think this is one of the contributing factors. This is a 2.5 hour movie. To where this felt, especially in the theater, I remember a lot of people being like, this is, I don't know, just weirdly paced and kind of like wanting them to get on with it.
I don't know. I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was kind of here for it.
Yeah. Like I said, I like
I get
it.
you. Yeah.
Especially at home when I could like pause and I think there's always like a slightly different effect versus like seeing it in a theater where you have no ability to do that. But I don't know. That was, and again, like that wasn't something I had as big of an issue with because I tend to like longer movies. Okay, but I know a lot of people I went and saw it with, my wife, like other people who just felt like it really dragged, and this was one of the parts I think that because it kind of goes down and gets real kind of slow for a while, and then rises back up. We can talk about like if my memory serves, when the monster shows up to give his account of what happened, Victor has already died.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They don't have this sort of like, I'm going to tell you my story and you're going to sit here and listen to me.
Right.
We've heard from Victor that he has regrets about what happened. Because he already had regrets. He's like, I kind of regret this. I feel bad about it, but let me explain it to you. And like, we could tell he was very conflicted about everything that had happened. Yet he still felt that he had unleashed like a monster on the world that he needed to kill. And that's why he was chasing it. But he was very conflicted in his own tale. But then he dies and the monster comes in and gives his account. And it's like, clearly Victor didn't understand just how wrong he was in some ways and how like, a lot of the monstrous things that we've heard about that the monster did, like killing children, were there was reasons that it happened. Whether or not they're forgivable, we can see the reasons. Here, it's different because he's telling it to Victor, and every time we flash to the present and we saw him walking around and like telling this story to Victor, I was always a little frustrated with how just sort of a blank affect Victor would have on his face, and I'm like, what do you think of this, man? Because like this should totally blow up your worldview where you thought this. I mean, like he's later on we learned that he didn't know he was intelligent, but like to this extent, and that he bonded with his family, and like, and I was frustrated that we weren't seeing that because when we get to the end, to like skip ahead a little bit, when we get to the end, they reconcile, and it happens so fast, and Victor's like, I was wrong. You're my son. You should enjoy your life. Like I messed up. Like he's so like over the top apologetic. And I was like, where did this come from? It felt like we just arrived there very quickly and it wasn't really earned to me.
Yeah. I have something I'll weigh in with this. Yeah. I was thinking at the end of this, and I heard Del Toro talk about some of this a little bit, but I think this is his letter to his children. Like I think that he's saying sorry as a person. I think that he's saying if there's anything that I did wrong along the way, I'm sorry. Like all of that kind of stuff, and that's why he's tying it up in that way and in that sentimental way. Whereas it's a total deviation because Victor's not even alive anymore, and I feel like it almost doesn't necessarily make sense for this story. I like that he wanted to say that to his kids, or to create a universal sort of message that maybe parents feel towards their kids, or at least contemplate.
Yeah.
And
well, it makes it end on a sweet note, and we have this reconciliation between monster and creator that we never really get in the book.
Right, and I just don't know if it necessarily if it fits in the story like this for me.
No. Yeah, it felt like a weird tonal shift. Yeah, there hasn't been much of a chance. Yeah, I agree that on Victor's part especially, there hasn't been a lot of reciprocity in terms of understanding, acknowledging the creature's point. And, and then he just dies. I kind of a pet peeve of like villains who apologize and then die and never really make amends. It's like, it's a very cheap apology. But it's all the creature's going to get, which is sad.
Easy enough to apologize when you're on your deathbed, I guess, right?
Yeah,
you don't have to live it.
Yeah.
Also, like, weird that he just dies in this moment. It's not like he's got any new injuries, but like now's when he's choosing to die, I guess, or when it's like, this is the moment, just when it's story appropriate. Yeah. So a couple parts. So after he leaves and he kind of goes on his vengeance, I guess, or in the book, that's what he's really doing. Here, he's gone to find Victor. We have this wedding is about to occur. Elizabeth gets pulled into the room, gets shot. She jumps in front of the monster literally to try and save him. Victor shoots her and then lies about it and says that it was the monster. This is where we have the very on the nose line of "you're the monster," because his brother also dies. Then Victor's like lost his mind and now he's just chasing the monster across the tundra. And yeah, I don't know. Even in the book, this part's a little bit like, wait, he chases them on dog sled to the North Pole? Like, how does this happen? So it is, admittedly, some of this is from Mary Shelley, but...
Well, it's pretty epic, honestly. Like, I always found my imagination of all of that was, it heightened the story for me because it was such a chase him across the world.
Yeah, you can kind of fill in a lot of the blanks in your mind in the book, whereas in the movie, I don't know, it seemed to occur very quickly. He's like actively chasing him. Then all of a sudden he's on a dog sled. Then all of a sudden they're in the North Pole. And I'm like, how did this all happen so fast? And I don't know. He's got a prosthetic leg in the movie, which is not something I remember from the book, at least, too. So that was something he introduced.
Yeah, there is some plausibility stuff there. It's like, especially when he's limping off with the snow on his prosthetic leg and he's been shot by the creature and like he doesn't have anything on him. And I'm like, I feel like at this point I'd go back to my house and like get my things or like, but I mean, it's story. I get that it's visual storytelling. Like it's the wrong nitpick to make, but
that reminds me of him limping with the leg. Like there's a little bit, because I think the monster even says this at one point. He's like, I'm going to make you into the monster or something. And he breaks his nose.
Yeah.
And I feel like Del Toro has been touching on that. I think that's the point of the prosthetic leg to him, is like, look what this obsession has done to you. You are like slowly turning into this thing that you have created and despise. Which, like, I get thematically, but as the disabled person with a bad leg,
it's a little
always a bit of a difficult look to have your disability, equated with inhumanity and monstrosity,
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, part of that is, I'm sure present in the original novel. This is something that's been going on a long time. But yeah, I don't know how fond I was of that part of it. But I guess I get what he was going for. Okay, so I think you hinted earlier, Rachel. I think maybe now we should do it. You had a game or some sort of debate we wanted to have?
Yes! Okay. So I have made us Fuck, Marry, Kill, but Frankenstein edition. So this is like, fuck, marry, or, kill them and we'll use the parts to reanimate our next cadaver, okay?
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and there's 4 rounds of this, but they're short, okay?
Is it Victor's mom, Elizabeth, and it's just like,
and Mia Goth?
and Mia Goth.
Yes! Round 1. We could do. You want to do that? Let's do Victor's mom, Mia Goth, and Elizabeth.
I don't want to derail your game.
So round 1.
Let's go with the original 4.
Round 1: Oscar Isaac, Mia Goth, or Guillermo Del Toro.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so the people, not the
human,
not the characters,
the real people. We'll do some characters too, but
All right. Man, can we, instead of killing them, can we like? You're
gonna reanimate the body. You're gonna scrap them for parts and reuse them.
You have to become the monster here. You need to kill somebody.
You have to kill somebody. Sorry, Luke.
I don't know, man.
It's the game.
this feels problematic.
Oh no!
All right, I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll jump into the fire.
Go for it.
All right, so it's fuck, marry, kill. I'm gonna fuck Mia Goth.
Ooh, good choice.
Yeah,
bold choice.
I'm gonna marry Guillermo del Toro. Yeah, I wanna be alone with his mind. I want to hang out with that guy on a daily basis. And then I guess I'm killing Oscar Isaac, which feels wrong, but I like him as an actor. I'm a fan.
Yeah, but he's
goodbye.
just not. Yeah, sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's good. Do we want to like give each person one maybe, and we keep it
I like
moving?
that. Okay. Yeah,
All
I
right.
love it. Okay.
That's you. Yeah.
Luke, I'm gonna.
Do you?
Okay.
Is that you saying you sign off on that, Luke?
I do. Actually, I was thinking
Actually,
the same
pretty close to
thing.
what I picked too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for Oscar Isaac, it's only because his parts would make such a beautiful,
There you go.
Reanimated.
That's a
monster.
great point.
So, I mean,
What is it? The broken and discarded dead.
Okay, here we go. So now, this is for the Del Toro movie. Okay, so the creature, the angel of death. Or the Dutch sea captain.
We didn't even talk about that.
I know.
And the sea captain, yeah.
Or the sea captain. Yes.
Oh, the sea captain.
This is a great one.
Yes.
All right, Luke, go ahead.
All right. I think we're gonna fuck the angel of death.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Which very very interesting turn. We can talk about it for a moment. Like it starts out as this like statue in his bedroom as a child that becomes a recurring like kind of figure in his nightmares, where this angel has become wreathed in fire and has turned red, and to me is very reminiscent of like a devilish figure, maybe like being drawn to the dark side of things or to creation and like playing God, and like that all seems kind of tied up in this figure of the angel of death, which we're gonna fuck. And then and then let's go. We'll marry the monster, of course. We want to marry the monster, and poor monster. We're gonna teach him language and be kind to him. Which means we're killing the boat captain. Which, like, honestly, I'm not gonna miss him too much. Throw him overboard.
He's probably not making it back to his home to Holland anyway. Up there.
Yeah. A mutiny will
he didn't
definitely
even
break
have
out.
any like. He didn't say anything at the end of all this crazy. Like, he just heard all the hot goss, and then he doesn't have any reaction other than to walk out and be like, "We're going home, guys." Like, and I get that that's a change of mind, but like, But like, yeah, like, come on, man, give me something.
He comes out, one major thing too, he comes out and he says to all of his men who just witnessed 6 of their friends die, he's like, let the creature go. No context as to why he's
they're all
now
like,
turned.
okay.
Yeah, they're like, okay. They let the creature go, and then he's like, we're going home. It's like, great, all right,
Yeah.
something happened in there.
Yeah. Well, he gave up his obsession because his obsession was going to get him all killed. He was
Sure.
obsessed with trying to go to the North Pole. So he's learned, because like ultimately this is a story about obsession, right? And the way it consumes you. What's your next one, Rachel? I say next ones you're going to have to answer, and then the last one will be maybe we'll answer as a group.
Okay, I like that. Okay, great. I'll say the best one
choose
for the
whichever
group
one you
then.
want to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the one I'm assigning to myself then. Okay. Fuck, marry, kill Lord Byron, Mary Shelley, or Percy Bysshe Shelley. Who's
that's a good one.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is pretty straightforward. I am going to fuck Mary Shelley. I'm going to marry Percy Bysshe Shelley because it just seems like he seems like a sweetheart. And we gotta kill Lord Byron. I mean, I don't know, kind of
Yeah.
I figured you were killing Lord Byron. I thought maybe you would marry Mary Shelley.
I kind of thought that fucking Lord Byron would also be a valid choice for different reasons. As long as
At first I thought it was obvious, but then the more I thought about it, I was like, there's some pretty good arguments for several of these. Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on that? Like,
I like it. I may have married Mary Shelley just because, again, to talk to someone like that on a frequent basis, I think would be cool.
Like live with a literary genius.
Agree, because Percy, he seems like he'd be a good fling, but if you're around him for an extended period of time, might get old because he's such a sad boy. Like
he's a kind of sappy dude, and you know.
And plus, wasn't he also like super unfaithful? I feel like he had lots of affairs.
Oh man, I can't remember. Didn't Mary Shelley keep his heart wrapped in like a handkerchief?
Well, because she desperately loved him. That was the story is that perhaps she did that.
In that case, I have to reverse that if I brush up my history a little bit. But maybe your listeners can give us.
Regardless, we're killing Lord Byron. I think we all are.
Unambiguous. Great.
And I don't fault you. I think your way is fine too. Yeah, I think either of those is the winning way.
Okay, here's my best one for everybody to answer. Okay. Fuck, marry, kill. Book Victor, Del Toro Victor, or the Boris Karloff version Victor.
Oh, okay.
I like this. Yeah,
I like this a lot.
Okay, so I very quickly made my mind up.
James, go for it.
The Del Toro version of Victor is Oscar Isaac, so I'm gonna fuck him.
Yeah, he's very hot. I mean, it's not a bad choice.
And then I'm going to marry. I think I'm gonna marry Mary Shelley's version of Victor, and then kill. No, I've swapped it. I'm marrying the Boris Karloff version, the James Whale version, and I'm killing Shelley's Victor.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I'm trying to remember. So that James Whale one, we have the It's Alive. He's kind of like that pure mad scientist vibe, right?
Yeah. He's got a sidekick
pretty
Igor.
I feel like something about Shelley's Victor was even more hateable in some ways. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. So my initial inclination was to marry the original Mary Shelley version, and I think that's where I'm going to ultimately land still, because I think there's just more nuance. Victor is a character who, while very flawed, and who I think we called him like a constant, like kind of whiny sad boy when we read the book, and he is. Reminds me a little bit of Percy Shelley, actually.
Yeah.
And yet, I think that's the version of the character I find most interesting, and I find most nuanced and complex. And if I'm going to spend a lot of time with someone, I think that's the one I want.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And then, if you're going to fuck either Oscar Isaac or not Oscar Isaac, I think that's a clear, obvious one right there. So, yeah, I'll switch that, but otherwise keep it. What about you, Rachel?
I mean, Luke, you kind of got my order as well. Definitely fucking the Oscar Isaac version. I feel like that, the Lord Byron Heathcliff type exists for flings. Like, that's what he's there for. And then book version just seems like the most human. Like I feel like if you marry the mad scientist, like, it's just a marriage in name only. Like, you're not really the most important part of his life. But I mean, he might let you handle the cadavers, which could be kind of fun, but
he seems eccentric.
Yeah.
He seems like he might be exciting. Yeah.
And he'd probably love it if you killed him.
It's too bad you haven't seen the Kenneth Branagh version, because the Kenneth Branagh Victor would have been an interesting wild card to throw into the mix.
Okay.
That would have been a wild card.
I'll have to watch that so I'm thrilled. Yeah.
Awesome. So that's great. I think you've elevated the content of this podcast with that.
Yes. Thank you for bringing the an exciting new segment.
This is what literary analysis is all about. Okay, so I think there's no better way to transition into our final judgments here on whether or not we like Del Toro's movie version of Frankenstein, or do we still prefer Mary Shelley's book. I think I'll go first since I feel like I've given my thoughts a little bit already, then James, and then we'll have Rachel final word. I'm going to give it to the book still. I like that more nuanced take, even though this is certainly a very visually stunning, stylish film, very fun to watch. I just have enough critiques. Even though I do have some critiques for the book, I think I can kind of hand wave it more away because it's how old it was and just how iconic it is in the history of obviously like the dawn of science fiction. There's just so much credit you have to always give that book, and how complex of a look at like the human heart and conflict over creation and prejudice and what it leads people to do, and all of that is like caught up in this sort of timeless novel that I feel like I have to just give it to the novel, even though I did like the movie pretty well.
Yeah, I am also going to take the book in this case, and I want to just talk about Del Toro for a little bit because of that. Del Toro is again a filmmaker who I think I love his vision. I love the way that he can like command a story like this to life. I love his passion for like oddballs and like monsters and his identification with that, and the way that he's always like that. Again, he said like those are like his saints, like those are the people, those are his messianic figures, like those are I think that's so powerful to somebody like me that grew up feeling like an outsider in a lot of places, and seeing a filmmaker make those kinds of stories and being drawn to them, and seeing him like get the culmination of this film that he's been wanting to do for such a long time, and what I ultimately found to be like a really fun, engaging film. It's definitely a different version. So I can understand like the book purists like not necessarily identifying and like connecting with it as well, but I think that it's a fine story. While maybe it has like it wears its like motivations on its sleeve, it is like that sympathetic like dramatic gothic like romance story that he likes to tell, and he tells it in such a fun way, and like it's so his voice. So I love it for that, but ultimately, like for the reasons you said, Luke, it's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein's got to be one of the most important books in all of literature. It's one of my favorite books we've read for the podcast and in general. It's so enduring. It's so crazy that it's still just as powerful as it was when it released, and for that reason, I think the book still has it here.
I guess I'll make a consensus because I also pick the book for the same reasons. I mean, it's one of the foundational texts of literature, and it, and of like a couple of different major genres. Like it's a major touchstone in both science fiction and horror, and so I really admire Del Toro for jumping in with his version of it. So that said, I'm not mad about his version at all. It's about 2/3 of my ideal version of Frankenstein, if the one I really want made. My only thing is I would love it to be just dark as all get out.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's still another version that you're kind of wanting to have made one day. Yeah, I was kind of left with that same feeling too. Like I wanted to feel like this was the definitive version, but I didn't come away feeling that. I was like, there's still another version out there that I might want to see one day.
While it maybe isn't the definitive version, would you say it's your favorite version that you've seen?
I was going to ask
that's out there.
Yeah, is this now your favorite?
Yes. Yeah, for me, definitely. Yeah, I'd say I've only seen 2, so I need to see the third one that's out. And maybe give my opinion after that. But I think that
there's so many of them actually.
Great.
There's
a lot.
I was going to say
we haven't seen enough of them.
Tons of Hammer films and
beautiful.
like all those ones, these Universal films from way back.
I think there's like a whole sequence in Penny Dreadful where basically the story of Frankenstein's told, right?
And like, it's still like it's got all the stuff I mean, the body horror of it, like the whole sequence where Victor is just using his bare hands to handle like body parts, and his hands are just in there, and it's like he doesn't even care. Like all that is just great.
You should watch the Branagh film at some point, and you have to let me know what you think when you see it. You have to. I'm so curious.
I will.
So I agree. This is my favorite version of Frankenstein now.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I really like that Branagh film, but like, is it actually a better movie? No. But maybe I like it more. I'm not sure. It's right. I have just a soft spot for that movie because it's so insane, and it's like, it's kind of insane in a way that is off the rails that I kind of enjoy. But yeah, this is probably the better movie, so I'll give it to it. I don't know, that James Whale one's also like, I feel like maybe we're not giving enough credit too for how iconic it is and important it is. But it's just, it's black and white. It's from, was it the 30s? So
doesn't make it bad because it's black and white and it's from the 30s, but it is a little more simplified, and it if anything that makes some of the more major changes from the source material. Well,
and if any of these movies are gonna like go toe to toe, and maybe this isn't even fair to say, but go to somewhat toe to toe with Mary Shelley and like how foundational a book it was, it's that movie with how foundational a film that was for film history and horror and all of that too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, shout out to that movie, even though it's none of our favorites.
So
I'm sure the film historians are pissed. Right
probably.
Now. No, you're wrong.
Yeah.
If there's a brilliant horror director out there who's listening to this right now, like what I want is the one I can watch as a doubleheader with Nosferatu. So just give me that.
So really, you just need Robert Eggers to make his Frankenstein.
Yeah. There, that'd be perfect. I'd be happy.
How freaking that would be something. It's almost like overdone to where like he would have to wait, but maybe like that could be something he can do at the tail end of his career or something. There you go. Because he loves period pieces, so it lines right up with it. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for joining us again, Rachel. It's always a delight to talk to you and to talk about Frankenstein. Where can people find your work, follow you online, keep up with what you're up to, and maybe find out about that secret level stuff as soon as you can announce it?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, you can follow me on Blue Sky at Rachael K. Jones. You can find my website by the same name, or you can have my complete bibliography. And if you're looking to see Secret Level, check out Amazon Prime. And, I don't know when season 2 is going to drop. I think that because we're still, the writing's done, but the production isn't done. The release date's still in flux, but it'll probably be around in the next year-ish.
Very cool.
Awesome.
We're looking forward to that.
Definitely, absolutely. I will link all your website and everything in the show notes, so people just like go down to whatever you're watching this on and then look for it. You can find it. Thanks so much, Rachel, for coming on. This has been a delight.
Same. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you all for listening. We really appreciate you giving us your time and for joining us to talk about Frankenstein. It's been a lot of fun. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know in the form of a rating and review, if you're willing, on whatever app you chose to listen on. If you're on YouTube, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Share it with your friends if you know people who've seen Frankenstein and might enjoy this conversation. We really appreciate all of those, engagement things you can do to help our podcast continue to grow and find new listeners.
Yes, and be sure to connect with us on social media. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, all of those at Ink2Film, and we're on basically every social media platform you can find.
Also, we are putting a big emphasis on Discord this year. There's going to be a Discord link in the show notes. We are collecting suggestions on there for future episodes. We are going to be interacting with our community. There's going to be dedicated places to talk about each project, including this one. We'll all be on our Discord, so we'd love to have you join our Discord. If you've listened to this far in the episode, you absolutely deserve to be in there. So we'd love to have you.
We talk about like news adaptations that are coming out. We talk about like video games we're playing or music we're listening to. So come hang out.
All the above. Also, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Ink2Film. And on there, you're going to be able to get access to bonus episodes, which we do every month, like that. Kenneth Branagh, Frankenstein was once one of those. You'll also be able to vote on polls about upcoming projects. So if you want to be able to vote on that and directly influence what we're going to cover, that's going to be the place you want to do it. Once again, that's patreon.com/Ink2Film.
And thank you to Mark Vandermeulen for the use of our intro and outro music.
All right, man. So that's going to be it for this week. All we can have left to do is announce our very next project. It is going to be A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. We are back to George R.R. Martin. We are getting back to the world of Game of Thrones, or at least the sort of extended universe of it. And I'm very excited to return to this. This is a show that I have a lot of friends who've been watching, and I've been having to hold back on because I knew we were going to cover it. So I'm excited to get into this one, man.
I can't wait. I have been watching it. It's awesome.
Yeah. Once again, you're already on top of it. I've been waiting. I've been holding off. So
I also read the novella way back when. So it's been cool to like connect with them that way. But dude, I cannot. It's so fun. A Song of Ice and Fire when it's at its best.
Yeah,
so fun. There's a reason that we've loved it for such a long time, and I mean you loved it for much longer than I have.
Absolutely, man. All right, so if you would like to hear us talk about that, make sure to join us again next week. But thank you again for listening, and until next time,
keep adapting.